Behind the Dish is sponsored by DBAT. Check out dbat.net for baseball and softball products, franchise information, and to find a location near you. And now your host, John Piper.
Welcome to another edition of Behind the Dish. We're broadcasting live at the 75th Annual American Baseball Coaches Association Annual Conference in gorgeous Grapevine, Texas. And I'm pleased to be joined by Todd Coburn, also known as the Catching Guy. You'll have to catch him on all his social media platforms, over 70, actually 80,000 strong on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Coach Todd Coburn, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, John.
Well, it's so awesome to carve out time. We're wrapping up the show today, and we're surrounded by a couple hundred coaches that are here at the conference. It's always good to connect with coaches, see old friends. I know you're here to speak tomorrow, actually, at 1:20 on the U stage to talk about catching, correct?
Yep. We had Jeff Calhoun from Point Loma Nazarene. He spoke earlier on what we call the big three of catching: receiving, blocking, and throwing. And then I will be speaking on what we call the specialty plays tomorrow at 1:20. Specialty plays meaning the tag plays, force plays, bump plays, pop-ups, everything else that happens for a catcher.
Well, you know, that's a position everybody knows is really the quarterback on a ball club. You know, keeps the pitchers in check when they're having a bad day or a good day. And, you know, it's something that is your niche now that you specialize in. I watched one of your videos, Todd, preparing for this podcast, and I think it's like a 2-minute segment of why does anyone want to be a catcher? You know, the beating they take, bats to the neck, balls to the balls, right?
Yeah, that was one of them.
And all that. And that, I think that video went fairly viral. But talk a little bit about the mindset of a catcher, really at any level.
You know, I'll tell you what, it's obviously the most physical position on the field. But the mindset or attitude, what's going on in the catcher's head is just as important, if not more important, than the physical side of things. We have to be I call it be comfortable being uncomfortable, which is a pretty common term. We almost always have something hurting and sore, whether it's our feet, our knees, our hips, our arm. You know, we blocked several balls in the dirt that game, so our forearms and wrists are all beat up. But it's definitely a mindset thing where we don't have the appreciation for pain as everyone else does. You know, we get hit by the ball, and it is what it is, and you move on. And that's what that whole video was about, you just mentioned.
Now, when you were playing, obviously, you played the position. A lot of catchers will transition into first base or potentially right field. During your playing days, did you ever transition to another position?
You know, I did. I ended up playing more first base my last season than catcher, but it wasn't necessarily because of my knees were starting to go out, my body was giving out. It was just what was best for the team at that time. So I was lucky enough to... you know, I still to this day, my knees, you know, snap, crackle, and pop a little bit. My hips bark at me every once in a while. I'm 46 now, but I'm still good to go.
That 1 year you played a lot of first base, did you think to yourself, well, I should have transitioned to first a lot sooner?
You know what? Part of the reason I do what I do is I absolutely love catching. I had a passion for it. For whatever reason, you know, I started at an early age, and it just stuck with me. So honestly, when I was playing first, I actually played a little third base as well. I felt naked out there without my gear on. I wanted to be back behind the plate as soon as possible.
Well, what's cool about being a catcher is you're engaged in every single play of the game. And, you know, some right fielders, left fielders, outfield, good pitcher, the outfielders never get any action.
Right.
So being engaged and being in command of every single pitch of the game is something that's kind of special.
You know, that's actually so I'm a little ADHD still to this day. Mind jumps all over the place. As a kid, they tried to put me in the outfield. It's pretty fast, pretty athletic. But I would watch the airplanes fly by, the birds fly by, picking the grass, you know, whatever. I was easily distracted. So they had me put the gear on, and it forced me to stay focused, and it just stuck. And you're exactly right. We're involved in every pitch, and that's part of the reason that I fell in love with the position.
Now, I noticed you were drafted by the Houston Astros. We had a guest on just yesterday, Coach Robbie Wine, who played at a high level. He played for Oklahoma State University. And he went to OSU as a shortstop, thought he might transition to third base. But he was telling this story just yesterday, how to make the ball club. Now, this was back some years ago. He's a little older than us. But he had to transition to catcher to make the squad, which is unusual, to transition from a position player to a catcher. You don't see that very often.
You know, I think it
at the
honestly,
college level.
Yeah, it actually probably happens a little more than a lot of people know. I think most people know Buster Posey. He was a shortstop
and a pitcher.
Shortstop, and pitched for Florida State. Ended up transitioning into the catching. And the thing is, and I talk about this all the time, catchers need to have every physical tool of all the other players on the field, meaning that we need to have the arm of the right fielder. We need to have the athleticism of the shortstop, the durability of a pitcher. I jokingly say the brain of a scientist, because we're thinking for ourselves and thinking for everyone else. So that athleticism of the shortstop, that actually transfers over well to catchers at the next level. It actually happens quite a bit. You know, there's so much going on in a catcher's mind. They're, like you just mentioned, they're really a coach on the field and an extension of the coaching staff. Yeah, you know what, like I just said, we're thinking for ourselves. We're also thinking for our pitchers. A lot of times we're helping and thinking for our infielders and our outfielders, our team. We're the only guy on the field with everyone in front of us. So it's just a constant, communication with everyone on the field, making sure that we're handling our responsibilities, but they're handling theirs as well. So it's always communicating, always talking.
Now, you started the catching guy, hashtag the life of a catcher on social media. Make sure if you're forwarding this podcast, hashtag the life of a catcher. We'd love to see that pop up on social media. You started in 2006 doing some camps and clinics around Reno, Nevada, where you call home.
Yes, sir.
And that just grew and grew and grew, and now you're taking your message nationwide. Talk to us a little bit about what you're doing now and how you're impacting young athletes across the country.
You know, the way the story goes, so I was doing my company, LLC, whatever you want to call it, is Gamer Baseball. Teaching kids how to be gamers, how to play the game right, play the game well, not afraid to get dirty, take one for the team, all that kind of stuff. I started doing camps and clinics and lessons for a living in 2000, so it's been almost 20 years now.
Wow.
And I started my own company in 06, which is Gamer Baseball. And I still love what I do. I love what I did at that time, but I remember finishing a camp one day, fall break camp, went and sat in my office afterwards, sat down on my desk, and just had this aha moment, like, all right, it's time. I gotta mix this up. I'm getting a little bit of a lull, doing the same thing over and over for almost, at that time, 15 years, and just brainstorming with myself, decided what do I need to do to make a little bit of a change. I love catching. I've always been a catching guy. I wrote a book on catching for my master's thesis. Love the position, love teaching the position. So I said the catching guy out loud in my office, typed it into social media. No one had it, took it, started posting, and the rest is history. So from there, I just continue to grow as I posted, and my goal has always been to, like I said at the beginning, is help as many catchers, as many coaches of catchers and parents of catchers as I can. And you're talking about a book you authored called The View from Behind the Mask. Where can our listeners find that? Is it online or? You know what? It's no longer in production with the way times have changed, ebooks and social media and online presence and that kind of stuff. So everything that's in my book is now going into, online products. I have a Drop Your Pop working on a Stick to Pitch. My Coburn certified certification program, all that stuff from the book is going into those. We'll put some links in the podcast on where our listeners can find that. Perfect. I'm sure there might be some PDF, some subscription models that they can look at. Exactly. To get some of your content. That's awesome. And like you mentioned, it's all culminated into your speaking tomorrow at the 2019 ABCA National Convention. That's got to be empowering to be able to give back to other coaches. There'll be a lot of youth coaches in the audience that are working with that 10, 11, 12-year-old catcher. What's going to be the message? Just go ahead and give the audience here, a lot of these coaches that are standing around, maybe a couple, 2 or 3 key takeaways in your talk for tomorrow. So I think what happens a lot of times, discussing with Coach Calhoun and Andrew Bartman, who's the youth liaison, trying to decide what we wanted to discuss. When I threw out the idea of talking about specialty plays, Andrew was all about it. He said no one ever talks about it. No one ever discusses that. And one of the takeaways, one of the things that I'll talk about tomorrow, I had a dad come up to me. He's doing a lesson with his son. His dad was also the coach of the team, and he said, man, Todd, he said, we had this championship game or some important game, and he said, son was catching. There was a play at the plate. My son was way too far from home plate. Great throw, caught it, spun, tried to make the tag, but he was straight too far away, totally messed it up, and Dad was a little bit upset about it. And I said, okay, Bob, how much have you practiced that? How many times did you work on that during practice? And he's like, we never did. And I go, how can you be mad at your son for messing it up when you never practice it? So, again, it's kind of often forgotten. And like I'll say tomorrow, the big three, receiving, blocking, and throwing, that should be the majority of your training should be dedicated to those skills. But the specialty plays cannot be forgotten. We have to mix those in throughout the week during practice to make sure if it happens, the kids are ready for it.
That type of play is really hard to duplicate in practice. You know, you don't want your own teammates busting up each other at the plate. So how would you recommend they get some of that practice time in to duplicate situations like that?
So one of the things that I've done, and I know other coaches, catching coaches out there are doing, is we'll roll a ball. It's a safe alternative to a runner. I actually used to use those big, huge stability balls, exercise balls, but then I typically had the catchers tagging too high. Obviously, the runner's going to be sliding most of the time, so we have to tag low. So now I use a soccer ball or a basketball as a safe option. So we just time it. We have the infielder, outfielder make the throw, cutoff man, and then we roll the ball down the line, and that simulates the runner and gives them a good, safe alternative to practice tag plays.
Todd, this take a step back a little bit. Back in your playing days, you have a very accomplished resume. You played at a high level, small college, and then, like we mentioned, you were drafted by the Houston Astros. Talk to us a little bit about the challenges you went through to play college baseball, some of the breakthroughs you had, some of your more memorable moments on the field as a player.
So I have a pretty unique story in that when I was a kid, I was not a good ball player. Never made All-Stars growing up. Was actually cut from the team my freshman year in high school. Didn't even make the team. Just flat out wasn't good enough.
We hear that all the time. It's amazing.
Yeah. I just wasn't good enough. I was a pretty athletic kid. Could throw the ball really hard. Swung the bat pretty fast, but swung and missed and threw it away a lot. So I got cut my freshman year. In between my junior and senior year, I knew baseball is what I wanted to do. So something clicked in me. I said, hey, I gotta figure this out. And that's when work ethic kicked in. And I started practicing and working out literally daily to the point where my coaches and parents were saying, hey, take a break. You need to take a day off. I said, no, I've got goals. I've got dreams. This is what I want to do. I want to get a scholarship. I want to play professionally. And once that work ethic kicked in and I started to take my athleticism and turn myself into a pretty good ball player, I ended up getting drafted. So freshman year, getting cut from the team. Senior year, getting drafted. It was a low draft pick, but I did get drafted. I was actually the only guy drafted in Northern Nevada in 1990. But I guess my point is you got to put in the time. I mean, it's all about work ethic.
And for catchers, especially, we're focused on catching. We're talking to Todd Coburn, the catching guy. How often do you have catchers that say, "Hey, Coach Todd, I'd really like to, spend more time at third or first," or do you ever have any catchers that say, you know what, maybe this isn't for me, and they want to transition out, or are they all pretty well sold on the position?
So I get both. I get the difference maker, and I talk about this all the time at my events. The difference maker with youth is blocking. Everyone thinks I can catch, I can throw runners out, I can catch pitches. That's no problem. But the second that pitcher spikes one of their fastballs, especially it's when they're kid with the teammate with the best arm and can throw really hard, and they drop down a block and it smokes them in the wrist instead of the padding. That's the difference maker, and that's usually when a kid decides I can deal with this and I love catching, or you know what, maybe catching's not for me. So it comes down to the blocking a lot of times. The
only bone I've ever broken, I'll play catcher, and my middle finger of my throwing hand, ball in the dirt, jumps up. I was catching a guy that went on to play in the big leagues, Matt Turner, and it broke the tip of my finger, and that's the only really sports injury I've ever had.
Wow.
I know catchers get banged up quite a bit, but yeah, I can see. Todd's showing me his hands. He's got a lot of broken.
I've got what they call catcher hands for sure. Yeah, I've got arthritis in my pinky already. I've broken my index finger, my throwing hand twice, my thumb on my throwing hand, ring finger on my left hand. So I think I've